Okay.
All right, so everybody's got to agree to that. My name is David Hill. I'm currently president of the Chebeague Island Historical Society, and I would like to call this meeting of our annual meeting to order, and first ask for a motion to establish a quorum so we may proceed. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Mary. Second.
Seconded.
All right, thank you, Gretchen. And now, by show of hands, all in favor of the motion to set aside or to
Jim, come with
declare
me.
quorum?
Wave, here comes Jim's hand.
Michael is here. I'm gonna wait for him.
Oh, put up 7 fingers.
Carol's not waving. Oh, there she is.
I'm not really comfortable with this, so.
Oh, okay.
Right now, hurry,
My
hurry, hurry.
hand's been recorded.
Well, let's listen to Carol here. With David, let's have a discussion. Let's think about this.
All right,
It's okay with me, I just don't, I just feel that since we're revising the bylaws, which is a pretty big deal, that's what makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable with going forward with it, but I'm not gonna vote against it, I'm just not gonna vote.
So, one thing we could do is hold the meeting and then have another meeting with special meeting to accept the bylaws next month.
That's a
Yeah,
good idea.
but,
yeah, you're reading
Yeah.
right.
so you guys just go ahead with it.
Let's,
So can it only be done at the annual meeting though? Is that the issue?
No, you can, in any meeting of the members.
Okay,
so I would declare that we have a quorum for the purposes of this meeting, but that we don't conduct any long-range, we'll do election of trustees and officers, I believe, but the bylaws will defer to a later date until we have the full buy-in of our membership. Is that agreeable to everyone?
yes.
Okay,
I mean, David, I'm okay if you guys vote to go ahead and do the bylaws too. I'm okay with it. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. And it makes it a lot easier, but I'm just not gonna vote for it, that's all.
Well, if we go in person and for Erno's thing in July, we'll get enough people there. If we want to do that at that time. We'd have to notice it and all that, but
You know what? David, I will vote yes for everything. Okay.
But I declare-
I've changed my mind.
Thank you.
Let's go for it.
I declare then that we have a quorum and that we're officially in session as the annual members meeting, June 19th, 2021. And having done that, I call the meeting to order. What we're going to do tonight is first I'll give a short president's report, giving some background and on what we've been doing this year. We'll have some recognition awards and the treasurer's report, and then election of trustees and officers. Then, as we discussed, Carol will talk about bylaw revisions, and then finally we will move on to Donna's presentation, growing up on Chebeague. So with that, all of the votes will be voice votes. We'll do those just the way we did our vote for approval of the quorum. And so everybody who's on here, be sure to locate your mute or unmute button if you care to speak during the course of the meeting. So with that, we don't have minutes to approve from last year because there was no annual meeting held last year. So I'm going to move right into my president's report for 2020. We did actually manage to accomplish quite a bit during the pandemic. We kept the museum shop open in person a couple of times during the year, and online, thanks to the expanded selection that Beth McNulty put together, did a wonderful job. We did continue our lecture series, and actually we expanded it. We added speakers, and we had participants and viewers from Chebeaguers and Chebeague expatriates around the world. So we actually improved, I would say, our offering in the lecture series, and I hope we'll continue that this year. Okay, here's Beverly.
Beverly, she got in.
Yep, she's in now. There she is. We managed to publish a double edition of the Sloops Log with Herculean effort from Donna Damon. And there are already calls for another edition right away. It was so well received. That won't happen quite as soon as perhaps some people would like, but that was a big success, I think. So all in all, for the year 2020, I would say we actually did pretty well, all things considered. It was certainly a challenging year for us as it was for everybody else in the world. Looking at 2021, we are planning to open an exhibit. Schools are working hard to get the exhibit open, so everybody needs to stay tuned for that opening date. The museum shop, as I mentioned, is open online, and at some point will be open in person with lots of new items. And as I say, we can go online and shop immediately. Thanks again to Beth and all of her efforts. The building maintenance, we added air conditioning, which is very welcome on a night like this. That was with the donations plus generous matching grant of $10,000. So it was quite another Herculean effort in strange times. Thanks to the fundraising and member management, we had the generous support of many Islanders, and we give special thanks to the Recompense and Raymond Foundations who helped make that possible. Donna's been joined by Kendra McKinnon, who has supplied invaluable assistance in getting all of these things done. So I'd like to move on to a recognition award. Kathy McNeil, who I'm happy to see is online tonight, is retiring after 16 years of membership on the board of directors of the Historical Society. And her contributions are really too much to mention. All the calendars that she's put together and the contributions she's made to the society are going to be missed. But I'm told that she will continue with the calendar. Is that right, Kathy?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good. We really appreciate that. So thank you to Kathy. And I'm not sure exactly what the nature of the resignation award is. I think Gretchen's going to unmute herself.
It's recognition, not resignation.
Did I say resignation?
Yeah,
I meant
yeah. That would be a new board development strategy that we give awards when somebody is resigning. No, it's a recognition for Kathy.
Not doing that. So thank you, Kathy. We really appreciate all you've done for us over the years, and I'm sure your contributions will continue.
Thank you, Dave.
Next is our volunteer.
And David, can I just say, Kathy, we have something for you at a museum nearby.
That's what I thought. I thought somebody would tell me that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kathy. All right. Now on to our Volunteer of the Year award. This person has been a wonderful addition to the island and to our museum. She's put countless hours making the store what it is today, which is well stocked and online. Big kudos for that. So thank you to Beth McDulty for everything that you've done and will be doing. And I'm sure that at a museum near you, you have a present there as well.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you are our Volunteer of the Year.
Thank you.
And David, I'd like to make a comment. This is the first time in the almost 40-year history that we've ever given this to a board member. So this is even bigger than this, because this is the most Herculean effort we have ever seen.
And keeping it secret was also a Herculean effort. And I hope.
Yeah. And your name will be on a plaque, Beth.
Oh, boy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Well deserved. Absolutely. Okay, so now we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Gretchen, if you'd like to take it over and review the year 2020 and our challenges for 2021.
Okay. Well, let me do a review of 2020. And within the context of the challenges that David has just outlined, I am really pleased to report that the Historical Society weathered the pandemic year in financially good stead. While our donations were down, our donors remained supportive, and that is a true blessing. But we were able to offset that reduction in donations with both foundation and government grant support, which was terrific, which David has also alluded to. The very strong showing of the museum shop online sales was the true saving grace for us. And as the volunteer, Beth McNulty dears such kudos for her amazing leadership of that effort. Not being able to open the museum and our shop could have been really damaging because we definitely rely on that revenue. And the special recognition that we did for Kathy McNeil is so well deserved. She has been a stalwart and constant volunteer supporter of the museum shop, and along with I don't even think we could begin to count the number of hours that have been given by Donna. So it was that kind of on-site hard work that I think pulled us through 2020 and into 2021. So for the year 2020, our total revenues were $88,147, and that was just off from 2019 by less than $1,000, which is why it is so remarkable. And we had a positive bottom line in 2020 of income after expenses of $2,479. Now that was a little bit off from 2019, which was $5,839, but still a great showing. And kudos to everybody who kind of pulled together and the support that we were able to receive. We do have challenges though for 2021, and we are concerned that the lingering effects of the pandemic will impact our revenues this year, especially in the area of donations and grants. This economy is really just coming back to life. And while they talk about it roaring back, I don't know that any of us are really seeing that yet. So early in 2021, as we as a board and the finance and the exec committee, we studied our expense options and projected a net loss for this year. If we looked at what we thought was realistic in terms of revenues and we thought would be reasonable in terms of expenses, we were looking at a loss, and we said we needed to do some changing. This has caused us to do a significant regrouping. We are currently reviewing all expense areas and looking for cost saving initiatives coupled with improved efficiency. We've been having weekly meetings. We're looking at other similar organizations. We're seeking as much guidance as we can to fully develop these cost-saving initiatives. As I said, we're looking at other similar organizations, and we will shamelessly steal any creative ideas that they have come up with for management, efficient nonprofit management. But given what I think we've all gone through, I think it has been a remarkably successful 2020, and then certainly the first half of 21. So thank you, David.
Very good. Thank you, Gretchen. Let's move on to election of trustees and office.
Wait, we need a motion.
Approve the treasurer's report.
Motion.
You want to do a motion on that? All right.
Yep.
Move to accept the treasurer's report. Anybody?
I move to accept it.
I second.
All right, I got Carol to move it, and I saw Aaron actually seconded it first before you, Mary. And now I'll call for a vote, show of hands, accepting of the treasurer's report. It's unanimous. Thank you. So now on to election of trustees and officers. Let me read the slate. The candidates for trustee 3-year term are Richard Hackle, Gretchen Tonks Hartling, Sarah Hopkins, and Jill Whitman Marcy. Nominees for officers, 1-year term Mary Holt, President, Jackie Trask, Vice President, Carol Sebastiansky, Treasurer, and yours truly, David Hill, Recording Secretary. So do I have a motion to accept this slate as presented?
I move that we accept the slate as presented.
Thank you, Jackie.
Second.
And Gretchen's a second. Any discussion regarding the slate as presented? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Again, show of hands. All in favor? It appears to be unanimous. Yes, thank you. And now on to new business. Carol Sebastiansky has been working very hard to update our bylaws. Bylaws for a nonprofit organization really do need to be reviewed from time to time as times change, as regulations change and such. And so Carol took on the mission to update these and make them modern. So I'll turn it over to Carol at this point to tell us about the bylaws.
Okay, thanks, David. Yes, a few months ago, the officers agreed that the bylaws should be reviewed to determine if any revisions were needed. As most of you know, all of you know, it's good practice for an organization to review its bylaws periodically to determine if there's still best practice and in compliance with regulations. Our bylaws were last revised in 2013. In the process, we consulted with the Association of Nonprofits, looked at other nonprofit organization bylaws, including an historical society. The officers approved them, and then we took it to the full Board of Trustees at our May meeting, and it was the revisions were unanimously approved at that time. We also posted the revised bylaws on our website and referred members there through various mechanisms, including online and posting on the ferry, so that people could review those prior to this meeting. And there are a number of changes. Some update the wording and a lot just to simplify the operations and the rules under which this organization had decided to govern itself. And what I'm going to do now is review you just the major changes. If anybody has any questions about anything else, obviously I'm happy to answer them. There's nothing here that has fundamentally changed this organization. It's to streamline things, bring things up to date, such as non-discrimination clauses, things like that, and to give a little more flexibility to the board to meet its charge. So one of the big ones is the current bylaws have two categories which comprise the governing board, and they are officers and trustees. They're elected separately by the members, and they compose the governing board. We've eliminated the governing board and put everyone as a trustee, which is the way that every nonprofit I know operates. You still have the same number of people making decisions, but instead of having two different elections, as you might say, we're just going to have a board of trustees who elect their officers. We have added a trustee and officer indemnification clause, which is standard in today's world. And of course, we have insurance cover that. We've eliminated the position of corresponding secretary. We feel that can be handled by other board members and volunteers. And eliminated the terms for trustees and officers and increased the term for trustee from, eliminated the term limits and increased the term from 2 years to 3 years for trustees. Those are the major changes. I'm happy to review any others if you have any questions about them, but mostly it's a matter of streamlining and providing some flexibility in terms of how the board governs the organization.
All right, thank you, Carol. Any questions, comments? regarding these changes to the bylaws? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion. Mary,
I move that we approve the revision of the bylaws as presented by Carol.
I second that motion.
it's been moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion regarding the acceptance of the revised bylaws? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote, a voice vote, hands in the air. All in favor? We see all hands up. I call the motion passed. Thank you very much, and thank you, Carol, very much for the hard work you've put in on this.
It's done.
At this point, yes, Gretchen?
Yeah.
Never mind, okay. At this point, I would like to call for a motion to adjourn the business portion of this meeting so we can move on to Donna's presentation. And Mary
I move that we adjourn this annual meeting.
and Gretchen,
Second, thank you.
and again with show of hands, all in favor of adjourning? All right, that concludes the business portion of our meeting. Thank you very much.
David, can I just say something before? And I should have said it before we adjourned. On the behalf of the board, I want to thank you for stepping in to be president. Has it been 2 long years now that you've been doing it, or 3? Boy, time goes quickly. And quite honestly, you've done a terrific job. You came in, you did what we needed to do. And I think we all so appreciated what you did for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Gretchen. It's been a pleasure. It really is. I've said for years and years, the best organization to be a part of on this island is the Chebeague Island Historical Society. I believed it when I first said it in 1985, and I believe it now. So thank you so much. So with that, let's move on to Donna's presentation. Are you ready, Donna?
Let's see how the technology goes. So first I share the screen, right?
That's correct.
And then I click on the slideshow.
You click on no, not on the slideshow, on the slide. Your first slide should be one of the screens. If not, click on the slideshow.
Right. You have to go to the slideshow.
Okay,
And then I have to go to play from the start. Can
right.
you see it?
Not yet.
You can't?
Have you, well, you click
My
on,
whole screen is, I already did click on that.
there
oh,
it
wait.
comes, there it comes.
Did you get it?
Yep, there it is. Perfect.
Okay. So, well, welcome everyone. And welcome everyone to Growing Up on Chebeague. And Chebeague is a place where memories are made that last a lifetime. And I think that is what really resonated with us when we came up with the idea of actually creating an exhibit on growing up on Chebeague. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some of what I find is inspiration. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask everybody to mute. I'll go ahead and mute people who are not muted.
Okay.
Proceed.
Okay. So as I've been thinking about this, there are various poetic phrases have come to mind, song titles, song lyrics, and some we've kind of brainstormed periodically as a committee. And this was a quote that Sharon came up with, Sharon Bowman. And I think it's an anonymous, but she knows where contributing to her. But the island is ours. Here, in some way, we are forever young. And I think that is, all of these things together help us to understand how childhood helps to form us. And I think that if you think about the publication that we put out, the Sloop Slog, and those stories by, over 20 people, you got that feeling that those memories were right on the surface for them. And so in a way, people do feel forever young. I mean, I've said for years I felt 15. So some people may feel younger than that. So we think back to Longfellow and his My Lost Youth. And he has the recurring verse, a boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. And that's from his poem about growing up in Portland. He was born in Portland in 1807, and when it was very different than it is today. Commercial Street didn't even exist. And in that poem, he keeps to what Portland meant to him and growing up there. While I was working on this, all of a sudden on my Pandora stream came the Beatles song In My Life. And if you think about it, and so I felt that somebody was telling me to include this. So, I told Rachel I was going to sing all these things, and she almost had a heart attack because anybody who knows me knows I can't sing. And she said, "You're not really going to do that, are you?" I said, "No, I'm going to read them." So if you think about it as poetry, there are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. All these places have their moments. With lovers and friends, I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life, I've loved them all. And you think back to when you were a kid, no matter where you lived, that just so resonates. And it was more of a love song, but to me, the way I read this song, when I hear it, that comes back. That really resonates my childhood. So what we're really talking about here is a sense of place. So the term sense of place is used to describe how someone perceives and experiences a place or an environment. And when you think about that, it really makes sense that a sense of place is personal. Your childhood is personal. Your memories are personal. Carol's on here today, and she will say that when we all get together, sometimes we hear things that we never even knew happened, but we were there. Because what was important to one person isn't necessarily important or doesn't resonate with somebody else. But you have that shared experience. And so, and this came from Wikipedia, and I thought it was a really good way to look at something as complicated as sense of place by thinking of it as a multidimensional, complex construct used to characterize the relationship between people in spatial settings. So if you think about it, you have a place and you have people, and how do they interact? And when you read the stories that people wrote, it helps you to understand that, because whether it was, I'm going to pick on Carol again, in her story, there was a picture of her and she told about how safe it was. And then she told me the picture that I had put where she's out in a field. She was running away to Eleanor's, but her mother told her she couldn't. So she went backwards. So she thought her mother wouldn't know that she was running away. And so she could see the house, but she was really trying to get to Eleanor Johnson's. And so it's that relationship between people and places. And it's a characteristic. I thought this was really interesting. It's a characteristic that some geographic places have and some do not. And we all grew up, a lot of you grew up in different places. And I don't know, it would be interesting, maybe at the end we'll have a little time to chat, to talk about this. And are there places where people grew up that doesn't have the same feeling for them as a place like Chebeague? It's that'd be interesting to hear about. And it's often used in relation to those characteristics that make a place special or unique, as well as to those that foster a sense of authentic human attachment and belonging. And when you think about that, authentic human attachment and belonging, I think that we all think of that some part of Chebeague belongs to us. We know we have to share it with others, but I think we all have our special places. We all have our special memories, and we have some kind of an attachment that, and a lot of times it is formed in childhood as you're growing up. And this came from a book called A Sense of Place by Keith Basso. I've not read this book, but I think I'm interested in doing it. I actually took a course in graduate school, and it was called New England and a Sense of Place. The whole semester was just talking about how different parts of New England evoke a sense of place when people think they're New Englanders, and what does that mean, considering where in New England you live. So it's a very interesting topic, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on sense of place. But sense of place is really it's now ingrained in our mission statement at the Chebeague Historical Society, because that really is what people think about. What resonates with people is the fact, their connection to this place when they support this organization with their time, talents, and donations. Oop, I skipped one page. Okay, wait a second. Sorry. From childhood, create a sense of place. Just off the top of your head, you think about your family when you think about childhood. Unfortunately, my internet connection is unstable, so this is going to be the best you can. It may come in and out. And you think about your friends. And again, I'm picking on Carol. Carol always says you can't make old friends. Did you ever think about that? You can't make old friends. People who have that understanding or had that experience, and when you start to talk about something, they know what you're talking about. Familiarity, freedom, environment, activities, adventures, traditions, and much more. Oop. Okay, wait a second. All right. So, Chebeague Island, Maine. And what do we think about when we think about Chebeague Island? First of all, it's a place to come home to, no matter how old you are. That you know that it's a place where somebody will know your name. You think about Cheers, the old Cheers song. It is a place where somebody will know your name. It's a place where an annual pilgrimage is the one constant in a mobile society for some people's lives. That was something that conversation with Rich Hubble years ago. He told me no matter what happened, he knew that they would be on Chebeague in the summer. And for him, that was stability. It's a place where memories are ensconced in ledges and landings. You think about hunting for baby crabs, or you think about standing on the wharf, fishing or jumping overboard. A place where someone shares your past, you're probably going to find somebody who knows where all your skeletons are buried, and that you may want to get out your checkbook from time to time and buy somebody off, but that there are people who share your past. It's a place that is ingrained in your heart, and that when you think of it, it evokes that kind of feeling. And a place where memories of childhood surround you if you grew up in, for example, Chebeague, or in other people's special places. So the Growing Up on Chebeague, the exhibit, it's full of artifacts, photographs, and stories from nearly 120 individuals. Artifacts, photographs, and stories from the Chebeague Island Historical Society collection from the 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries that have been given to us and shared with us before we started going out and recruiting those 120 people who sent something to us. We've scanned nearly 5,000 photographs over the past year and a half that have been added to our digital collection because people opened their albums. And we have expanded the Chebeague photo album. Ted Ballard was in here a few weeks ago, and we were looking for a picture or something. And he saw pictures of his family he had never seen because one of his cousins had shared one of the Ballard family albums, and I had scanned it. And, he said, this is incredibly important. What because he said, you have the island's photo collection now. And so that was reinforcing the goal for that project. So we have, in this exhibit, there'll be everything from a 19th century China dolls to 21st century t-shirts that will actually connect people who are much younger with the island. They're going to look at those and say, I remember those shirts. And it might have only been 10 or 15 years ago, but we want something that even the kids who are 7 or 8, they might say, oh, I remember that. And so that's what we're hoping to do. Oh, I keep holding it down too far. So it's just some examples of some of the photo albums that we have scanned. And we've usually, what I do is I scan, you can scan something and draw it around the picture and you get a higher resolution. But in a few cases, I actually scan the whole pages, just as well as doing the other, just so that people have an idea. The top one is from Betty Dyer. And you see pictures that's Betty in the middle, Betty and Dick Dyer, Clarence Ross from over to Long Island. There's a picture of Betty. I'm not sure if that's Bob. I think it might be Bob or Dyer. And then this picture, you can't really see it because it's tiny. But it's all the West End kids, just kind of, they've got the boys have hip boots on, roll down low. And, so it's just a typical out of somebody's family album that, every family has an album. This one is from the Stewart family album that was shared by Susie Stavropoulos going back into the very early 1900s. They're clamming down on the sandbar to Little Chebeague. And you think about the generations of people who have done that. And so people can relate to it. And then over to the right, this is from John Howard's family album because he shares some of the same relatives as Susie. So they have the same great grandmother, who is this woman here. But so this is one that John had made himself out of family pictures. So people are still putting together these kinds of family albums. Today I was with a friend and she reminded me of this song from Smokey Joe's Cafe. And again, I'm not singing this. I should have had, if Mary was here, I would have made her sing these songs, but here's a picture of the neighborhood. Here's a corner we stood, me in uniform, home on leave. You can shut your eyes and think about these albums. Friends and family, Christmas tree, faded pictures in my scrapbook. Just thought I'd take one more look and recall when we were all in the neighborhood. Here's a photo I've been looking for. It's a picture of the boy next door. Here's a snapshot of Dad's old car. Never got us very far. Faded pictures in my scrapbook. Just thought I'd take one more look and recall when we were all in the neighborhood. And all those friends, where did they go? All those friends we used to know in the neighborhood. So, disclaimer. Did we use everything that was shared with us? No. Unfortunately, it would be impossible to use everything in the exhibit. Our goal was to use something from everyone, to try to have something that someone shared with us. Did we succeed? Probably not, but we have tried. And I actually have a spreadsheet. Gretchen will appreciate this. I have a spreadsheet with everyone's name on it and whether they, lent or donated photographs or artifacts. So in the final analysis, we will be going through and checking to make sure we've covered everybody as much as we can. Is every child who ever stepped foot on Chebeague represented in this exhibit? Nope. I can tell you that right now. There's going to be somebody, just like with the Sloop's log, who two people I've heard from have come to me and said, can you make sure that in some way that my child is in this exhibit in some way because they weren't in the Sloop's log. So people went looking for their own pictures and couldn't find themselves. So we're going to do the best we can, and we have some group pictures, a lot of group pictures, but it's possible that somebody will not be able to find themselves in this exhibit, and that's the reality. And that's kind of what I'm talking about today. What is the reality here? And will you probably see too many photos? Oh, sorry, I've got a poltergeist here. Will you probably see too many photos of the committee members and their families and friends? Yep, I'm going to tell you that right now, because they were the people who brought the pictures, and I'm looking at Jackie right now. Jackie comes on a regular basis because she has such wonderful photographs. And there are times when we're looking for a picture to tell a specific story. And I'm all ready for that. And I know that's, that just comes with the territory. But thanks to Chip, we have, we eventually will have hung on the wall one of those picture album projectors that people have it on their coffee tables. We got the biggest one we could get. And we will have a running slideshow going all the time with as many pictures as we can. And hopefully, if people stand there long enough, they'll find themselves. They may not be on the wall, but they may be there. Okay, so the essential question, when will the exhibit open? Honest answer, we don't know. We had a committee of 7 or 8 people working diligently when COVID struck. And then people didn't want to get together. People were looking out. It was more important to stay safe. And recently, I'm back to work. We've just received, Kathy was in last night, we've received some wonderful reproductions from Graffiteria. But it took them 2.5 months to do these. And I just took another batch in the other day because they've been swamped because of COVID. They've had so much business. But people, it's going to be worth the wait, because Jim at Graffiteria showed me he'd already printed some of the full-size children that we have. And there are going to be surprises for people. We're not telling people who these children are going to be. Most of them, we've talked to the people. We've only got one person we haven't told, because that person will then go tell everybody else. And I want it to be a surprise for everybody. But anyway, they are incredible, these pictures. And I think people are going to be really happy. And so they've had as much business. I put this in here to be funny. There was a run on framing and artwork, just it would rival the run on toilet paper. They just can't believe how much work they've had. And then the final straw was when I broke my arm. But hopefully Monday, I'm going to get cleared so I can start doing something again. So will it be worth the wait? For sure, it will be worth the wait. And what will be included? This is just a sample of a picture. And anybody recognize, raise your hand if you recognize the woman off to the right, who's kind of telling all the other kids what they're supposed to be doing.
I can't really see everybody who's got their hand up, so
Okay.
you can unmute yourself and speak up.
Anybody recognize her? It was really funny because today I took a friend, it's a long story, but I ended up at a funeral, and one of the people I met actually knows this person. She said, my friend Mary Toohey. Yes, I do. Tonight I'm going to show a picture of her. And so that's Mary Toohey. And she's kind of instructing everybody else. I think they're at a sailing picnic and they're getting ready to do something. But it was a great photo. It's just, this is the kind of material we have. It's unbelievable, the body of work that we have. And you look at that and you could tell about 1,000 stories with that picture. So we have a section called summer. We have a section called winter. We have holidays, organizations. We even have gunning. And I know Mary, this is hard for Mary, but we're showing the how we're talking about the culture of growing up on Chebeague, when the closet at the school was called the Arsenal. You can ask Cappy Leonard, he'll tell you all about it. And because the boys brought their guns and would put them in there so that on the way home they could go gunning. And, you know, they might see some ducks and go by the shore or whatever. And it was a different world then. And that's really what we're showing, is how society evolves. And it's sad that we don't have that simplistic feel anymore. So then we have Pals and Play. You know, it's going to be fun watching a bunch of kids doing different kinds of things that we can all relate to. There's a big section on theater, because theater has been very important throughout the history. If you go back even the 1800s, and there was a group of people who they called themselves the Mayflower Club, who used to put on plays, and kids were always putting on presentations through the school or you know, in other things. In fact, we know that the summer community in 1908, 4 years after Peter Pan was written, actually produced Peter Pan on Chebeague to raise money to build a new church on Chebeague that would have been across from the Slow Belt. And we know who was in that. We have copies of the review from the Casco Bay Breeze. And so and we know up through today that it still has been important for kids, and then as they become adults. And I credit theater as one of the activities that has helped brought the year-round and summer communities together. I look back to when Peggy Maraca Daya and Jean Maury Chadbourne came to the island in 1965 and Chip Emery was in the first show. And I'm going through my archives, Chip, because I've got a picture of you with a guitar and I've got to find it for this exhibit. But we met people that we didn't even know existed. I met the Reeds, I met the Howards, I met the Pauls. There were a lot of people that we met, and that we might not have ever met, who have become lifelong friends. And I really think that continued up with my children, and I think it continues today. It was a level playing field where everybody could interact with each other. It's just one of the examples of how Chebeague has become a more inclusive community. Sports, that's another one too. In baseball, some of the pictures that we have of people going, this came from the Betty Dyer collection of, I'm trying to think which one it was. Manly Dyer's boat, the Maud B. It was a huge boat. I think it was one of the biggest in the fleet at the time. It was his sailing boat. And it is so full of people, you can't believe it. There must have been 50 or 60 people on there. And they were heading out of Chandler's Cove to probably go to Long Island or Cliff Island to a baseball game. And so we have a lot of various sports events. And we also in sports are looking to when we started being more connected to the mainland, whether it was Little League, soccer. Sue Hale's on here. He and Gail had a soccer team on the mainland. It gave the kids an opportunity to meet other kids. Also under sports, we have swimming. And if you, in the swimming, we have pictures of when they taught swimming at Division Point and everything had to rotate around the tides. And then we have the pictures of where we had to take the kids to the Greeley pool because the ocean, that didn't really work because it was so unpredictable about the tide, the weather and all that. And eventually people said, wait a second, then maybe we need our own pool so they can learn to swim right here. And as well as kids have learned to swim, of course, forever in the ocean. But so, those are some of the stories that are in sports, along with many other things. Mentors. This is a really important section because as we talked to a lot of people, and we actually did a poll, we called random people from people who were in their late 80s all the way down to kids who were, maybe 10 or 15 years old, and asked them who is the adult on this island in their life that made a difference in their lives. And we've got a very short list, but it's very strong, of people that kept coming up over and over and over again. And that's going to be a surprise when you get there, but it really is interesting. You see the body of work and the different ways that people have helped frame people. And when you have somebody who's 80 years old, and I can remember people like Sanford and Lewis Ross and Bill Ross talking about, one of the people that we have who followed for a long period of time, his name was Stanley Libby. And eventually he was the principal. He was a teacher at the school and principal. And then he came back after years and was again. But in the meantime, he had a Boy Scout troop. He had a band. Had the boys taught every kid how to play an instrument. Every boy was in the boys' band. They had uniforms. And all of those men would say that Stanley Libby helped to form who they became. And so mentors is an important section. Work. What have kids done for work? It's amazing the different kinds of things that people have done, kids have done over the years. And so remember, we can only include what somebody has a picture of. So, there are probably things that we are missing, and of course, family is so important. And there's much, much more. Every one of these breaks down, holidays. We've got 4th of July, and 4th of July has 4 folders inside 4th of July. You think about the parade, you think about the picnic, you think about the road race, and by the time you go through all of these things, there's a lot of depth there. In fact, last night when Kathy and I were looking at the pictures, we said, maybe we could run this forever and just keep substituting pictures in, and no one would ever know the difference because it'd be different every day, every time they came. So here's a sample of our inventory. So some of these will be in the exhibit, some will be in the slideshow, some will be used in various ways. But here's summer. And these pictures, I don't think any of these actually so far are in the exhibit, but they just resonate. You see a group of people at a picnic, you see people on a sailboat, you see a couple of kids in a speedboat, and it just, many of you have been in a boat and put your hand over the rail and felt the water. Just that feeling. You can just look at that kid and just say, wow, I've done that. And winter. So we have, the kids at school, we've got some kids, brothers and sisters on snowbanks making snowmen down at the pond. And there's, of course, in winter, there's a lot of, we have some great pond pictures. Holidays. We could have had, I can't tell you how many pictures we have of kids with Santa Claus. And one of the funniest ones is one that is not going to be in this exhibit because I've got way too many people in my house, but there's a picture of my kids with Santa Claus in my kitchen. And they always told me Santa Claus came to the house, and I told them they were crazy because I had the flu one year. Doug must have taken a picture of them because there's Santa Claus in our kitchen and they've got Amazon. And so they were right. Santa Claus came to the house. But we do have a picture of somebody else where Santa Claus came to their house too. So a lot of these, you have one picture, but other people have similar pictures, and it will remind them of their own, of what happened with them. And that's one of the things we hope that people look at more universal than just the individual. See, I want to see myself. For example, this is Don Sochek and Nora. And when people look at this, we hope that all kids can remember how it felt to sit in Santa Claus's lap. You don't have to just be Nora to sit in Santa Claus's lap. And this is Cappy Leonard down here, February 1940. Dear Uncle Louie, better late than never, love from Cappy, and it's a Valentine. And with his picture in it. So it's so cute. And his 4th of July, this is Beth Wiles and Jared. And sitting at the picnic. How many of us can relate to that? And here's the Rich family, Jim Rich Jr. with Donna and Victor at Thanksgiving with the turkey. And then we have the Girl Scouts, Leanne Calder and Helen Slowick, commemorating the veterans of World War I. And then over up above, this is really cute. It's Easter, and you've got Dominic Stavropoulos taking all the snow she could get to make a Easter bunny snowman. And we actually had 3 or 4 snowmen made out of Easter bunny snowmen, which I thought was pretty funny in the collection that we would have that many. So in cousins, I started just for the fun, trying to think of, I want to do like parents and infants tonight. But I started to look at cousins and I started seeing similarities. So here are the Grunko cousins. They have cousins camp every year where they all get together. And then you have the Rich cousins up here, where they're just kind of all hanging out at the wharf because they live by the wharf. And then I thought this was really interesting. These are the Ballards with their babies, some Ballard sisters and sister-in-laws. And then you have the Lang sisters-in-laws with all their kids. And then you have the Hamilton sisters and sister-in-laws with their kids. And to be able to look at this and see over a period of time, so these are back in the late 19 teens, early 20s. These are in the 1930s, 37 actually. And these are in the probably 1990s. So these are all universal when you start to look at these huge collections of pictures of how people remember the past. And organizations. So you see there's a play going on over UAF at the parish house. Yes, this is the parish house back in the day before they put sheetrock up. You can see it's just an open room and they've got an old parlor organ someone probably donated. And there's Lindy Smith and Charlotte Hinkle, Marshall playing the organ as a teenager in 1957. And this is Sheila Burke. If you read Growing Up in Chebeague, she had a really nice article. She was Lewis Ross's niece and lived here until she was probably 10 or 11 years old. Then we have the learning square dance. You have the Boy Scouts getting ready to do some kind of a Cub Scouts to do a flag presentation. And you see these Stevie Ross, Stevie Walker, Stevie Johnson, Stevie Slowick, Bobby Riddle, David Burgess, Raymond Ross. And I'm not sure who this is turned around. It might be Meredith, I'm not sure. And then you see the Cub Scouts. These are still Cub Scouts, but now you see Josh Dowdy and Zach Dowdy, John Suma, George Burkett, and Tyler Weigel. And so they're still, you see that, you see the thread going through. Pals in Play. So here are some of the stewards down at the Hook eating watermelon. Hannah Burkett and Henry Hall at a sack race at the 4th of July picnic. Chris Rich and Victor Rich playing in a boat. How many people who grew up on Chebeague have had an old boat in their yard that they wanted to play with? And then you see just the kids hanging out. You see all these girls who are now graduated from high school, and some of them are in college, like Laura and Hannah and Jenna and Bee and Irene and Isabel. And then we see the boys. They're getting ready to go golfing, but they're just kind of hanging out. And so that's so the pictures that we have in that are really fun. And this is a way to get a lot of people into this exhibit by having some of these group pictures. And horses. Now, we're not going to have a horse section, but I just wanted to share this with you because we could easily do a whole exhibit on pictures of kids with horses. Because there was a time when horses, there must have been 1 million horses on Chebeague because everybody had their kid's picture taken with a horse. And then I don't think they're all the same horse because they have different colors and different eras. But we go back, this is Alice Blackwell, Jane Frizzell's mother. And this is probably the early 1900s. This is the Hulberts, the Howell family on the Cottage Road. And that's probably in the early 1900s. This is the old Hillcrest Hotel. This is Gardner Lang, his sister, and his mother with a random horse that looks like it just stopped by out in front of the hotel. And then you go fast forward, you're in the 70s, and that's my niece Carla Woodland, and she's up with all these horses. That's when the Bowens had all those horses on the island. And then, of course, Laura Hamilton, who has, they have their own horse. But like I said, we could do a whole exhibit just on horses. And I think that one of the things, along with, when I talk about theater, this is theater again, but this is a different kind of theater. And this is what makes Chebeague unique, I think. And I'm sure other communities are like this, but it's the intergenerational connections. I mean, when my son Tom was like 5, his best friend was Blanchard Bates. That's what he said. He was his best friend. And kids grow up on Chebeague being on a first name basis with adults and feeling that they, in a way, they're equals. They respect. I mean, I think it's a mutual respect between the adults and the children. And so these are just some plays that happened that we've put on over the years. The one with all these people, we had something like 50 people in this cast. And I think out of those, probably 20 at least or more were children. And you could see, a bunch of them right down the middle there, they're spread out all over it throughout this. But those connections with people, the connections I know for my children that they made with people when they were working on these kinds of endeavors really makes a difference in your life. It builds confidence and it's pretty exciting. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, you may have read that book, which is, if you haven't read it, it's a quick read, but it is the funniest book in the world to me. And it's about these kids who really don't have anything and they're really tough. And this church decides to take them on to help them. And they end up in the Christmas pageant and it becomes like a disaster. But it has a happy ending. Well, we took it one step further. We made a reunion at 20 or 30 years later where everyone in the book back and they were at the school reunion. And then they start to reminisce about what it was like to be in that pageant. So by writing your own shows, you're able to create this intergenerational opportunity for people because they don't write plays to do what we do here. And so by doing that, you're able to create a canvas and an opportunity where kids can interact. So you see over in the corner on The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, you'll see Ken Hamilton over on the side. And there were many adults in that one. He just happened to be in this particular picture, which was kind of cute. So I just threw it in. And then How the Cricks Came to Be, that was written by kids who were in the 3rd grade. And it played in numerous generations and it still resonates. But again, when it was first put on, it was just put on by the school. And then we took it to another level and and had adults in it as well. And so I think that intergenerational opportunity is really important. And I worked with Chip. We have a DVD of the Chebeague Fact, Fiction, and Folklore that David Hill did back when we did it in 1996. And you know, technology isn't what it was. Chip has tried to remaster it a little bit, but we have on the screen, if you're interested, and we can put it on our website, like Chip can give it to Gretchen and she can put a link on. If you want to see it, it's telling the history of Chebeague through theater. And when I looked at it the other day, it was a lot better than I ever thought it was, actually. So it's kind of it's kind of funny, and I think, but you learn a lot. But the most important thing was that the kids learned, they became acquainted with a wide variety of year-round and summer people, you know, in that endeavor. Again, it was a way to bring the community together. And family. I just threw these in here. So you see Rodney and Deborah Hamilton and their children and grandchildren. And Barbara's albums are unbelievable because every holiday was a theatrical production at the Hamilton house. So everybody had matching shirts, or they all had, I mean, it's just, her albums are incredible. And thank goodness that they have shared them with us. So you'll see some of them in the exhibit, not this picture, but you can just see Barbara was she had such an eye. And so she would make sure, whether it was 4th of July or, you know, whatever it was, that they just, her pictures resonate. And then here's the Ballard family. And we've got variations of Ballard family over time. You know, sometimes it's just with the grandmother and the babies and, you know, growing up, because we've seen so many of their albums from different parts of the family. And, but just to give an idea of, this is just one family. We have these of many, many, many families. Here's the Bowen family. And this is a George Hicks picture. You can see Victoria's in the front. Clyde is on the left, Gladys. And so people who knew them, Richard's in the back. And then we have Archie and Rita. And then we have the McNulty family. This is one of the funniest stories I've heard. It's a great classic picture. And guess what they're having at their picnic? My mother thought it was weird when my father, she started going with my father, and his family would cook pork chops over an open fire and make boiled dinners on their picnics. The McNultys had spaghetti and meatballs because her mother, for the Italian tradition. And this is a great picture. You can actually, if you look at it, you can see it's spaghetti and meatballs down at the hook. And I just love that picture. And then we see the Lang family, some of the Lang family, and they're at the golf course. And that's so typical of the Lang family. That golf course has meant so much to them from the time, we have pictures in the exhibit when Gardner's a little tiny kid, and that you'll see up there, and how important that has been. But, and that's typical. And then this is actually people in my family, and we have multiple generations in the same place on the same. And so it's kind of those traditions that are really important. And everybody brings their own piece that has their own tradition that means something to them. So ours is picking out crabs. If you look at this picture, you'll see a picture of me with the Chebeague Track Club shirt on. And these are crabs out here. And what we would do is bring crabs in, cook them over the fire, and then everybody just sit there and use a rock and eat crabs and throw the shells on, and they would just go out and the seagulls would clean it up after us. And you see it's a birthday party because my niece is cutting a cake over here. So all of these pictures have each picture has a story. And that's why this exhibit is so hard and so difficult to figure out which stories we will tell. So we're going to try to tell as universal as possible. So watch out for the grand opening of Growing Up on Chebeague, coming to a museum near you sometime. And these pictures I didn't do these composites. They were actually something that the Hamilton family had done. And this was kind of a modern picture album where they had just, kind of Photoshop the different pictures on without, they didn't need the corners or anything. And so that's it.
All right, yeah.
And if anyone has any questions or they would share a story, anybody would like to share a story, we'd be happy to have you do that.
And before we do, in addition to thanking Donna for putting on the usual fantastic show, I just want to say that anybody who noticed little glitches and interruptions in the presentation, hopefully within the next month, we're going to have broadband cable, fiber optic cable coming into the museum. And next year, I hope our presentation is much more clean. And not only that, I hope by next year at this time, we have a project going to bring fiber optic cable around the island to everybody. And so let's keep our fingers crossed. And that's something I'm going to be continuing to work on, I'm sure, along with Chip and others. So with that, any questions, comments, what have you for Donna?
I just saw Lila unmute.
Yep. Go ahead, Lila.
I love the way you have different places that families like to gather and their own stories that go with them. And it reminds me that we really need to write down some of those stories. Our family's favorite gathering spot for picnics is Rose's Point, and it's been that way from my father's childhood, I'm sure. So we have all these pictures at Rose's Point of men cooking the lobsters and doing the clams and everything, but behind each of those stories or those pictures, we haven't written down some of the disasters and things that happened. We just had one that happened. My sister's birthday, we celebrated at Rose's Point. And we laughed as we lined ourselves up because we were sort of in the position that my great aunt and grandmother used to be in, and sitting there in our chairs waiting to be served. In the meantime,
Uh-oh.
a little tiny Norfolk Terrier had been left at home because he always got into trouble. And they closed him off in the kitchen, and someone went home to see how Finn was doing. Well, Finn had climbed up onto a chair, and from there he'd gotten himself up on top of the kitchen table, and he ate a whole package of whoopie pies.
Oh, no.
Suddenly, as my nephew John Keneally says, every time we have a celebration, there is a vet disaster. So he was calling in to find out whether the amount of chocolate in all these whoopie pies was going to poison Finn. And it turned out there was almost no chocolate in it. And then they brought Finn down to Rose's Point. And I know we have a picture of him all bloated from those whoopie pies, spread out on the rock, unable to move, 2 feet in front, 2 feet in back. That was the story behind this gathering. Do that behind whatever photograph it is, because I can think of many other stories that have happened. We were telling them actually when we were down at Rose's over the years, disasters during the picnics.
Now, I had a similar situation. When my father was getting along in years, I said, Dad, do me a favor and go through all the pictures that you have and write on the back what there was about them or who it is and so forth. And after he passed, I was going through the pictures and I found a picture of me. I was standing out here in the front yard wearing a sailor shirt and carrying a stopwatch, getting ready to go out and sailboat race. So I turned it over and there it says David. And a little bit later in a different box, I found same picture and I turned it over and it said Eddie. Best laid plans, Eddie being my brother, in case anybody didn't know. Anybody else the comments to share? Yeah.
Carol and Jackie. Carol and then Jackie.
Yep.
So I just, my niece and nephew, Aiden and Sadie, live on the mainland now. And I was telling Aiden when I wrote the story for the Soups log about it, and he was kind of like down on Chebeague. He lives in Freeport now and all this stuff. And I read it to him, and he goes, "That's true, Auntie." So that was pretty cool.
Jackie?
So
our most memorable picnic with my parents, and I can't remember whether my children were along or not, but we went over to Jules Island to the, the area where the Punch Bowl is. And we had the usual hot dogs, but it started to rain. And so my father did create some sort of a, shelter out of driftwood, which was quite exciting.
Hmm.
And I think a similar thing happened over at Little Chebeague, now that I think of it, an impromptu lean-to out of driftwood. Was like just a shower, but kept us dry.
Very good. Anybody else?
Anyone else have a story? Jill,
Yes, Jill. You unmute.
can you unmute?
I'm trying, sorry, I didn't want to do it
That's
first
okay.
3 times. When you were talking about the things that brought summer and island folks together, for me, it was the sailing school when it started back in 1973. And to me, that was just this opportunity to connect with a whole group of people. I mean, we had so many kids down here at the East End, and I knew them, but to meet kids from around the island. And I just laugh when BJ comes to work in our gardens, because BJ was in that sailing school that first summer. And I mean, I had no idea who he was. And from then and now, he's part of my life here at this point. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of those kinds of activities that we benefited from that generations before did not have that interaction.
I also want to say that whenever I arrive on the island, I post a picture on Facebook of my feet on our front porch railing. And all of my Facebook friends know, I put nothing else except the picture, and all of my Facebook friends know. And I get all these comments back, oh, you've made it, Jill's summer has started. And it's just this sort of signal. And I describe, you have that list of what are people's connections to the island. And I describe it to people as our happy place. I mean, we are just ecstatic we're here in the cottage. The mice went crazy in the 2 years since we've been here, but we're here and just ecstatic to be back. So.
Mention.
I think, and I chuckled when Lila talked about the disasters that occurred at picnics. And I think that Jackie mentioned Jewel Island. And how many stories do we have of when we went on picnics or whatever, and we finally got organized and we got there, and obviously you'd forgotten something that was critical to the picnic. But even more critical was when you got home, and there might have been 6 or 7 boats that had gone over, and somebody, a child, had left a stuffed animal, which required a turnaround by a grumpy parent to have to go back and collect, first of all, stumble around in the dark and find the stuffed animal. And I think it's the disasters that we all survived that are also incredibly memorable. And then the coming together to resolve them.
Gretchen, you just reminded me of something I hadn't thought about for years, a story my mother told me. I think they were going to Goose Island on a picnic, and somehow they lost my grandmother overboard. And my grandfather had to catch her with a gaff because she had a corset on, even though she was going to a picnic, she still wore her corset. And somehow we got the gaff and hooked it on, and they hauled her back in and hauled her back in the punt, and then rowed her ashore. And they still had the picnic anyway, even though my grandmother had fallen overboard and they'd had to rescue her with a gaff. But I had forgotten all about that. But the minute you said picnic, it just reminded me of that. Do we have somebody else who would like to share?
Well, I guess we'll call it an evening then, unless somebody has any last minute thoughts or comments. I'd like to thank everybody who came out tonight in their own way and sorry we weren't able to get more people on board. But I think as the year goes on and as Chebeague opens up, we'll be getting together more and more, and I look forward to that. And I just
Hopefully next month we'll be in person at the hall, maybe.
That's right. That could happen. So stay tuned. And thanks to everyone. Any parting words from anyone? All right then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night, everyone.
Good
You too.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.